This is not a paid review. Thin lies, thin bunkers. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Before we get out onto the golf course today for the review, I just want to let you know we've had a lot of rain here in Austin in the last couple of weeks. So we've had some really soft conditions that we don't typically see. In the video, we'll still go through the wedges on the golf course, but we're gonna come back to the bay at the end for some really thin surface. We're actually gonna hit it right off this flooring here, and you can't really test a tighter lie than that. So enjoy the video and we'll see you on the way back. Just outside the Austin area where everything is thin. The bunkers have thin sand. The lies around the greens are really thin. The root structures are thin. Fairway lies, right? We only get a couple of months where we get some plush lies, but today we're going to talk about what makes some good wedges. Some Staff wedges. These are the wedges I'm currently playing, and let me just get this straight. This is not a paid review. As a fitter myself, I've been looking for really great thin sole, not too much bounce, versatile wedges for the turf conditions that I play. We're gonna kind of go real quick at a comparison. Here's a 50, and you can just see how thin that sole is compared to what a typical wedge, 50-degree wedge might be. And if we look at these are the tour grinds. These are new this year for them. This is their tour grind, and if we look at it really closely here, we could see that they've got a special camber here on the sole. That camber is really going to be that grind. You can see how it kind of like falls away behind. So really you're only looking at a grind that's that thick. However, in the center, if we look at it this way now, in the center it has actually some good width there, but at the heel and toe here, it's they've kind of shaved it out of the way. And when you look at it from down here, it's just really a beauty that's just gonna give you a lot of versatility. And again, if we look at the 60, so this 56 has 12 degrees of bounce. So really the conversation in wedges is no longer about bounce, but it's about grind. And then if we look at that 60, we'll do an up close, we get that same effect. And here from this angle, you can see just how nicely it's gonna get itself out of the way, that curvature. And then if again we look at it from this angle and we see really that grind, they just did such a nice job getting all that stuff out of the way. And you can see here all the heel, all the toe relief. I could hit soft flop shots. I could hit this off a cart path, really. So let's see some demonstrations. So we're gonna run some preliminary tests. Let's start with the Mizuno. This one was the last one I was using, again with that just a little bit wider sole. Let's just get a feel. One of the main things you can look for wedges is the ability to consistently repeat the process and really trust what that wedge is gonna do. This Nike. Again, slightly different already. We can see that the toe doesn't dig in as much, so that we can actually get the ball slightly left. Whereas before, the toe dug into the ground and I was not able to get it on mine. So like I said, I really like this Nike wedge, but I couldn't hit it, full distance. Now let's take a look at the other Nike wedge, the Nike Engage. I was interested in this because it had really a ton of sole relief at the heel, not nearly enough at the toe. There's a toe digger. I could just feel the toe side interacting. Now let's go to the current wedge. You can see this one allows me to go the leftmost. I That's how far left I had to pull with the other wedges because the toe would dig in. It was a little fat, but there's definitely some freedom I'm getting over here that I just don't get with those other wedges. It just interacts differently. And that's something you have to think about, is how does your equipment affect the rest of your game and your stroke style, and does it allow you the most versatility? And that's what this really is about, is that this is, for thin lies, the most versatile wedge. And this is, again, we're looking at a tour grind, the new Wilson staff. So with that, the tour guys on tour need versatility. You know, you could change wedges week to week, but we know as amateurs, most of us don't. They play the same wedges. So it's really important to know what wedges work for your type of conditions that you play on most. Again, this specific video is about thin lies and thin lies out of bunkers. So let's head on over to the bunker and let's see what we can do out of some thin sand. See versatility. So you can see, I mean, these shots are really about feel. You could see how they dig through the sand differently. And not to say you can't get some results that are similar. It's just that how hard do you have to work? How hard do you want to work? And how much should your equipment be working for you versus you working to work with the equipment? A caveat I want to say is this too, is that really shaft weight matters, and then head weight also matters. And really, you just really want to get fit, go to someone who you trust, or start asking, hey, are there any wedge certified guys in my area that might be able to kind of help me sort through this? You could always come out to Austin and see me where I'm fitting right now. So now we're gonna head on over to the green and test those little low spinny nippers down there, see if we can get some spin and see how they react. And each wedge will be very different. You'll see this is where that bouncing into, sliding under, all those things will come into it, because we really need to control our angle of attack and our delivery in order to get that proper spin to make that just sit, bite, react properly. So I'm really going to test us here with these really thin lies, nothing great, because it would be really easy to say, oh, you know, out of a great lie, it's easy to hit. But now we got to test it really. What's the worth of a wedge is when you start to get some of those tougher lies, and you start to get some of those lies that'll really test your confidence. So I'm going to try it out of some difficult ones. So clearly the way all these dig are different. And the way they interact with the turf from underneath and behind, right? Because just getting into the turf is one thing, but once it's in the turf, the way it reacts is really going to be kind of the result, other direction or even distance. I really had to be aware of getting this blade forward like this to get that back part of the bounce out of the way, to kind of get it up to that speed, up to that height of where you see that bumper in the background. So some adjustments, but again, that wider sole is going to get in the way of things when we're trying to get the golf club working through that thin line. So the Mizuno wedge, same kind of thing. I had less in the way. Obviously the grind is different, the sole width is different, but still making sure I really had to have my hands forward to get that initial height. Again, we want to really golf clubs that are going to be working with us, not necessarily against us. Some things off of thin lines, of course, you're going to have to make adjustments, but I can still feel the back of the golf club. You know, I can feel it in my wrist. The more I hit these, so we'll keep going. This guy again, I keep trying to make an adjustment. Again, I really like this part of the sole of the club. It's just that toe is just too big, and it's actually really good if they just ground that whole back piece off. Obviously, it would change the weight of the wedge, but just some again feedback into my wrist really, and just. I was only getting one up in the air when I finally got a feel for it, but I just feel the toe side digging and I'm just not really able to release. So let's go back to that Wilson Staff just one last time. Feedback is just fantastic. It's just, again, trying to play 20, 30-yard shots just to see how this bounce works. It's really good. Felt really crisp off there with the least amount of vibration back in my wrist. Honestly, after hitting some of these on this hard floor, it's definitely only confirmed it even more. Just like when I'm fitting for wedges, I use this as a test really for 60s. Where you're going to have to play those little 20, 30 yarders that maybe you want some spin on, and you kind of have to, you know, really nip it nicely off that turn. Ideally, it's a thinner sole. That's what we want, thinner sole. And the bounce, you know, bounce is not quite as important as the grind, the way they grind it off. But someone came to me and said, hey, my coach wanted me to get thin sole, high bounce. And that was that checked off the box. And this was a great fit with that guy who's actually a coach. Yeah, conclusions are still the same. We saw some interesting things in the video. I'm sure we're going to have some questions and comments and down below, but I'm happy to engage in any conversation. There's always a lot to learn from these videos and from the questions that you guys have. So remember, subscribe. Get active in those comments. I'm really happy to answer any questions, and tell me what else you want to see. Remember, stay focused and keep practicing.